Hi, everybody. My name is Brenda Romero, and I am a game director, and you're listening to Scene World Podcast.
Another episode. Welcome.
It's the Scene World Podcast. My name is AJ. I am not in my normal place that I'll be in a couple of minutes when we talk to our guest.
Every place is the right place as long as you are sitting in it.
Aw, thanks.
You're welcome.
You're a sweetie.
Buttering up people is one of my specialities.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this is the second part where we talk with Scott Miller. My news bit before we start with the podcast guest is actually that the museum on the card from the Digital Retro Park is now available on itch.io for digital download.
Oh.
So if you missed out for the physical release, now you can order the digital release as well.
Very nice.
Instead.
Yes. Cool. Awesome.
And everybody who ordered the physical release, meanwhile, already got an email from them, attached the digital release for free.
Very cool.
Yeah. That means you can play it in your PyPacker or emulator.
There you go. Yes. Awesome. Was that your news?
That was my news.
Okay, I've got some. There's I don't know how many I can get through on this. There are a lot of games. There's a lot of game news in the last. As we're recording this, we're actually recording this before we do the interview, which is probably a first for us. But I'm looking at this, and there are a lot of games that have been released or are being released from the end of August to current. And so right now, today it is September 10th. That we're recording this, and I'm gonna go through some of them, and I'm not gonna say links. I don't know. Maybe we'll put links in the video.
We should.
That's up to Jörg. But
send me the links. I will put them in.
Okay. Because he's gonna do the editing on this one. But so we have. Okay, let's see where we start from. Let's start from end of August. That's a good place to start. Gates of the Ancient, which is a 3D space. Why am I blurry? Blurry. Stop being blurry.
Because you are moving constantly.
There we go. Yeah.
You have to sit still.
Yeah. New webcam. Sorry. Gates of the Ancient, which is a very Elite-like game, looks a little bit nicer. There is, and I'm getting most of this from Indie Retro News. So, if you want to get a really easy rundown of where to find these games, just pop over to Indie Retro News and you'll see them all. This one is by Dr. Mortal Wombat.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, it's a fully polygon 3D explorational game with battles and looting on the 64, which is a lot like Elite. It looks very nice. There's also Cosmic Jailbreak, which was released in I guess it was a lost game that was found. And I guess they're releasing that one. The Willow Pattern Adventure. You can download an enhanced version of a game that was originally released in 1985 on the Firebird label, which was a big label in Europe, I think in the UK.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But there's an enhanced version that you can now get. There is Sarah Jane Avery, who everybody should know because we should have we really need to have her on the podcast because she's awesome and an amazing game developer. She's working on a RPG for the 64 called the Briley Witch Chronicles. And from the screenshots that I've seen, it looks awesome. So that's
just the problem. I don't like RPGs, but that's my personal taste.
Yeah, that's and I like RPGs and I don't really like shoot 'em ups. So that's what are you gonna do, right? Then there's another enhanced version of a game that was announced back in 2018. Apparently, it was released originally for the 64 on the Acclaim label. And it has been this is Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe. It was coded by Wanex. I don't know, with graphics by Saul Cross, who we all know.
And we interviewed already. Links down.
Yeah, but it's been re-released as an enhanced version by Hokuto Force. So that's available. There is a port of the Atari 2600 version of the 1981 version of Galaga is being released. And finally, an upcoming game by 64portal.pl, which I guess is Poland, called Robot Jet Action, which, again, judging by the screenshots, looks pretty awesome. I haven't played any of it. I haven't downloaded any of them yet. I just literally found them right now. And I guess there's just a teaser preview available for it now, but it's coming out. So there's a lot of, since from the end of August until now, there's a ton of games that are just popping up out of nowhere.
People are fed up with Corona and starting to get active again.
I was surprised that there weren't more game releases during the pandemic because what else are you going to do? You're sitting at home.
Family issues.
Yeah, but you're sitting at home. You got extra time. Man, play with the computer, code some games. But
anyway,
yes,
nice to know. Nice to know.
We'll put Jörg will put links to all of that in the podcast description because, again, he's doing the editing for this and
exactly.
but also if you want to just pop over to Indie Retro News, you'll see them all. It's the first thing you'll find there. Give a
well, at least from today's point of view.
Yes. Give a shout out to our colleagues over there at Indie Retro News.
Anyway, that was a good roundup.
Yes, it was.
And we are jumping to France.
I don't want to jump to France.
We do.
Oh.
Italy.
Well, yeah, but the good food, but international travel is rather iffy at the moment. So let's do it virtually if we can. Like Skype. Yeah, if we can use Skype, can we do that? That would be great.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
See you then.
All right.
Wonderful. Today we are talking to Scott Miller. Hello, Scott.
How you doing, guys?
Welcome. It's actually the second time that we talked because 5 years ago we talked when we were doing a Twitch show for film and games in the Frankfurt Film Museum, and you were together with us over Twitch via Frederick Schreiber and Mike Nielsen talking about shareware and your way into the industry. And today we will talk a bit about you rejoining Apogee, and that is actually the awesome thing here. So perhaps let's start a bit about how that started. I mean, all we know is that Apogee recreated in 28.
We probably spent about 45 minutes trying to figure out the history of Apogee and how it all went.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I'm the wrong person to ask because it's confusing for me too. I mean, I started the company back in 1990, and we kind of it was just I was just releasing games into as shareware back then it was called, where you release, we kind of pioneered the idea of releasing like one episode, and then that would advertise additional episodes that you could buy. And some of the games I was releasing, the cross games, were doing really well, so I decided to quit my day job and kind of form Apogee as a full-time business to see how it would work out. And I started recruiting other authors, and I recruited the guy who ended up co-making Duke Nukem with me, the original Duke Nukem. Also recruited the people who became id Software before they were even called id Software. They were just developers working at a disc magazine at the time, and so I ended up funding. Yeah, soft disc, exactly. No one's gonna know that. And funded their first game, Commander Keen, and then worked with them on Wolfenstein. So that's when Apogee got started in the early 90s, and as everything was transitioning into 3D, I decided to come up with a new name for the company, 3D Realms, back in 1994. I just got done reading a couple of marketing books about positioning and stuff, and it just struck me that, Apogee is known for kind of arcade games, but we really want to focus on 3D games. Let's make a whole new label that focuses on that. So really it was the same company. We just started using the 3D Realms name, and we started transitioning away from the Apogee name during the mid-90s. We still had some Apogee games coming out, but we knew that 3D was the future, so we were heading in that direction. Around, I think, 1996 or 7 or 98 was the last Apogee game. I think that was Star Gunner, in fact. Not sure, but anyway, in around 2008, one of my old business partners, Terry Nagy, who I'm now currently re-partnered with, he asked if he could license the Apogee name and also license Rise of the Triad, both of which I thought, why not? These are kind of dead. We're not using them at 3D Realms, so why not, help a friend out? And they ended up using that name and the Rise of the Triad license to work with Fred. I mean, this is so complicated.
I know, yeah. Seriously.
It really is weird how this all intertwines, but Barry ended up working with Fred Schreiber, who later became a partner of mine with 3D Realms. Anyway, Terry was the guy who first worked with him, and they did a Rise of the Triad reboot. And I got to know Fred through all of this, and Fred got to know me because Fred wanted to, at the time, do a Duke Nukem 3D sort of remake called Duke Nukem 3D Reloaded, which kind of looked pretty good. And so, but that kind of fell through because 3D Realms ended up selling the rights to Duke Nukem to Gearbox, and they now own that.
Exactly.
Anyway, so Apogee had the rights, certain rights to Terry had the certain rights to Apogee, but that just kind of fizzled out, and they didn't do anything after the Rise of the Triad reboot. And 3D Realms still actually owned certain rights to Apogee, and last year, Terry on his own worked out some sort of deal to get all the Apogee rights back in his control. And I don't really know how he pulled that off, but he pulled it off. And as soon as he did that, he asked me to meet him at IHOP one night, and he said, "Hey, I've got the rights to Apogee. Do you want to relaunch it?" I go, "Yeah, why not? Sure." So
perhaps a bit of context here. I remember 2015 when we were doing this museum interview. I asked you when you were explaining about the history, how about a new version? How about a reboot of Commander Keen? And you told me back then in 2015 that's not possible because you don't own the rights. But a few years later, Frederick Schreiber actually released Red Watchers, which is kind of a reboot of Commander Keen. So it was interesting for me, like, hey, either they listened to me or they had this idea already. So
Yeah.
I remember that, and when I was reading in the news that now you are conducting a lot of interviews because you are working with Apogee again, and you got the rights back. I was like, wow, I have to talk to Scott Miller and get an update from him after all those years.
Right. Well, actually, Rad Rogers was more based off a game called Rough and Tumble.
I know.
Which is a game I was completely unaware of, but Fred apparently grew up playing this game and loved it, and you know, he wanted to take that game and then also mix in elements from Commander Keen and some of his other games. So that's kind of the formation of Rad Rogers there, which was actually a pretty good little platformer game.
It's actually an Amiga game. The game
right,
that you mentioned, right? So it totally flew besides me because I never had an Amiga. But yeah, it's really true. I don't know if the idea was earlier or you really picked up my question 2015. I never asked you that actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some Commander Keen influence in Rad Rogers for sure, and I think that Commander Keen is even a playable character.
It is.
Really?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Worked out some sort of deal with Bethesda to let that happen. But yeah, I had very little to do with that game. That was more Fred's project. So when Terry asked me last year if I wanted to help relaunch Apogee, I thought, yeah, definitely. You know, I love the idea of bringing back, you know, because Apogee kind of was the original indie publisher, and the indie scene is exploding now, and it has been for years. A lot of innovations coming from the indie scene. So it just made sense for us to kind of get back into that and see if we could find, you know, just like we did back in the early 90s, find these up-and-coming, super talented indie developers that we could partner with and really help them make the game of their dreams. So, you know, bringing in money, marketing support, game design ideas, you know, help them port their games, localize it, just do everything we could to help them, you know, make the game that they really want to make. So that's kind of what we're doing nowadays. We have, I think, 5 games signed up now. We're looking at signing up several more games over the next several months. And you know, we just got back from PAX West in Seattle, where we had easily one of the busiest booths at the event. I mean, the event was totally downsized. There's no Microsoft there, no Nintendo or anything. It was really kind of an indie level show, which frankly I loved, and all the people that went there seemed to really, really love it too. But yeah, we were showing off a lot of games that we had just announced before the event, like Elements and Turbo Overkill. We were showing our game Dead Fury, Below the Stone, and all these games really seemed to attract. You know, we had lines playing all these games the whole 4 days. So we were super pleased with the show, and we're as charged now as, I should say, you know, energized, you know, as a company now, because, you know, for the developers especially, they were really pleased to see the attention that their games got, and it left them with just a great feeling that they were on the right track and you know, full steam ahead.
I mean, you are a VIP.
What do you think is spurring along the boom in indie development lately?
Well, I mean, some of the games that we have nowadays, some of the games that Apogee currently has signed up, like Elements and Dead Fury and Turbo Overkill. If we had tried to make these games back in the 90s, you'd be looking at 25 to 40 man projects, and all of these games now are being done by 3 people or less. Because the tools, the engines, everything's just so mature. You've got the marketplace. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel anymore. You know, if you want an AI system for your first-person shooter, you can just go get one for, you know, less than $100. You'll get that whole code from the marketplace, either for Unity or for the Unreal engine. And you can buy art assets. And like the guy who's doing Elements, you know, he's buying tons of art assets for pretty darn cheap. And he himself is an artist and animator. And what he does is he takes these art assets and he's able to sort of customize them for the game and make them look, you know, fully original. But he's saving hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of time, you know, doing this stuff. And he's not a coder. And so you know, he's making Elements in Unreal, and he's using mainly blueprints to get everything done. So You don't have to be a full-blown coder now to write a game. It's just amazing what you can do now for, I mean, a lot of these indie games that have come out, like No Man's Land, Minecraft, Among Us, these are very small teams. And, a small team is able to take big chances. Whereas, at the AAA level, it's hard for them to take big chances when you have a $100 million plus budget. You have to kind of play it safe. So that's why I feel like the innovation is mostly happening at the indie level now. That's where you're going to see people take the big chances. A lot of these big chances are going to fail, and you're never going to hear from them. But a lot of them are going to succeed wildly, and it's going to, it's going to show, the path to the future.
I mean, the pandemic especially. I mean, even Steam at some point crashed. I never experienced that before. That Valve has a resource problem because of too many people using Steam at once. So it's really, really incredible. I mean, so for the industry, it's really good to have the pandemic because people are sitting at home or are traveling less because of home office and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say the pandemic came in the good side, but for the game industry and a lot of industries like Netflix, it showed that those industries definitely benefited, and the game industry is certainly that way. That's one of the reasons we recently sold 3D Realms, because the money is there's a lot of investment opportunity now in the game industry, because investors out there see the game industry is very resilient to sort of downturns in the economy. So yeah, we sold 3D Realms a couple months ago to Embracer Group.
Yeah,
because it was too good of a deal to pass up. Apogee's right now in the middle of a very impressive money raise that's going to help us grow the company going forward. So it's a great time to be in the game industry for sure.
Embracer Group, by the way, is the new name of the old THQ Nordic. Just in case somebody wonders.
It's somewhere along the line there. There's there's onion layers of what group owns what group. And
exactly.
It's like cars and stuff.
Exactly. And THQ Nordic also published Red Watchers. So I know that because when we had an interview as THQ Nordic at Gamescom 2018, I actually met Frederick Schreiber and Mike Nielsen in the same area because they had an appointment at THQ Nordic as well. So I knew something was going on before the press knew it, because I just met them in person by accident. So, but it's really good. I mean, it's really good because I know that the Embracer Group is really focusing on retro, especially the retro PC market. I mean, just today they announced Jack Ellis is getting a new part after 20 years.
What is?
Jack Ellis, a round-based strategy game, is getting a new part. So they are really, really focusing on the PC retro gamer thing. So I guess that's really good for 3D Realms. And I saw even your family was happy about it on Facebook. yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely. 3D Realms was definitely focused a lot on retro games that they've announced. With Graven and Wrath, and
exactly.
There's other games that have not been announced that still kind of are doing like a half retro sort of style to them. And what's really cool is that, back in the 90s, it was always a sort of a battle and a race to release a game with the best graphics of the day. And that's completely gone now because, graphics are great and everything, but gameplay still rules. And we've kind of done a full circle on that. And so these kind of retro games, what they really kind of represent to me is that the graphics are not maybe modern standards, but that's the trade-off you have to do in order to have more focus on gameplay, and also more intricate sort of levels. I mean, like a lot of the games that come out nowadays, it's so expensive to create a level that the levels are super linear. Like 3D Realms released a game last year, Iron Fury, in which the levels are super mazy, like they were back in the 90s with Duke Nukem and so on, to where you can find all these different paths to get through a level. It's not like one linear progression. You can choose and pick your ways, and there's huge open areas that give you lots of choices and so on. And we're able to do that also with like Turbo Overkill, where you have huge open areas and you can kind of decide which way to go, and there's amazing shortcuts you can find and so on, because we're not spending a ton of time on the graphics of those levels. I mean, they're still nice, but they're not like triple or quadruple A level. We're not spending millions of dollars per level like the high end games. So not only can we afford to do more wide open levels, but we can also iterate on them. It's not as expensive to realize, this part of the level is not working out. We need to rebuild it, and that's very expensive at the AAA level. It's not that expensive at our level, so we can possibly even have more interesting levels than at the AAA. We're never going to compete with the looks of the AAA, but on the gameplay side, we might come out ahead in lots of cases because we can afford to iterate. Whereas at the high level, it's too expensive sometimes to really make major modifications to a level.
And you also plan with Apogee to stay independent, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we're taking in money from different investors, but we're also going to be an independent company. We plan to be that way for the foreseeable future. We have a lot of plans to sign up a lot more indie projects, and there's no reason at this point to think in terms of like attaching ourselves to a major publisher. We like being independent. It gives us control over the kind of games that we want to sign, we're definitely going to be an independent company for at least I'm thinking many more years.
I mean, if somebody knows how publishing works, it's you, because you invented the shareware concept. So.
Well, yeah, that, and plus, back in 1998, I was a co-founder of a company called Gathering Developers, which was another indie-level publisher. But we were actually publishing, in cooperation with Take-Two. We had like a deal, so we learned a lot about, retail publishing at the time. I've worked with a lot of retail publishers going back to GTIS. Kind of have a good understanding of both the indie level and the retail level. The retail level is kind of fallen away; it's less important now. We're really focused on, digital distribution. I'm so glad that that's come around and now become the dominant way. We plan on doing big boxes though with our games.
That was my next question. That's good. That would have
the
been
interesting
my next
thing.
question. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that digital distribution is now the thing, and that's kind of how the shareware thing started, because you started doing that on BBSs and pre-internet days, and then it kind of vanished for a bit, and then it came back. Now it's almost completely digital.
Yeah, it's amazing how things come around, isn't it? We were doing this before the internet, which is kind of hard to believe. Back on BBSs and places like CompuServe and Genie and AOL. Those were the sort of digital platforms to distribute your games on. I kind of look at shareware as like the original, in some ways, free to play, because we released this free episode, and back in the day, I used to say that shareware really only works if your game is good, because you have to put your best leg forward with that free episode, and if it doesn't win people over, they're not going to buy your game. So you have to release a great game in order to do well in shareware. We still feel the same way. You have to have good, people are not going to buy. You can't trick people into buying bad games. You have to make good games. So we're still focused really on that.
Well, nowadays, I think people are a lot focused on Metacritics and what the rating on Steam is. If it's mixed or negative or something, and of course you can still download a demo, but since especially Steam and other platforms has promotions and stuff, people often say like, okay, it's 20% off, I just buy the game because the critics are good. They are not even looking at a demo, which would come close to the shaver example that you said. So I guess it has a lot to do with reputation.
Yeah, well, 100%. Nothing's really changed from the old days in the fact that, if your game's getting good buzz, good word of mouth, that's the main thing that you want. And nowadays it's easier to get that buzz because we have social platforms like Twitter and so on. But it's still, if people are talking about your game, that's what you want. That's what's going to get people, to take a look at it and hopefully try it out.
Or you have the negative backlash. I mean, look at Cyberpunk, or at No Man's Sky. Those are two critical examples where the companies were promising too much and then ended up in crunch time and so ever. But I mean, that is also the positive thing about, as I said, non-AAA indie titles that don't have so much crunch time, I hope.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, the indie scene is very different because it's all about being more nimble. You can react to like we plan on releasing demos for all of our games, and based on the feedback to those demos, we can react pretty easily to improvements to our games, to what people want. Like even at PAX, I told everyone, all of our developers who were going there, to bring like a little notebook like this and just to write down everything they could based on people's reactions. And in each case, people wrote down, dozens upon dozens of like little notes that will improve the game based on how they saw people playing these games, their games at PAX and so on. So it's really great to sort of be nimble, be able to listen to player comments. It's not that hard to implement, new ideas and stuff that players have. So, we're very open to that.
What platforms are you trying to target on? Is it mainly PC, or are you also looking at Twitch and Switch and other console systems?
I mean, we generally want to release our game on all 4 major platforms.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There might be some exceptions there, but when we sign our teams up, that's one of our selling points, is that we want to do a simultaneous release on all 4 platforms. And nowadays, that's not that hard because, with these engines, it makes it very easy to do that.
Plus, a lot of the lower end hardware is, Android based or something. I mean, you look at the Amico and that's supposed to be coming out, and cell phone stuff and whatnot. A lot of that tablet, the more casual gaming is basically the same platform.
Yeah, we ourselves are not really looking at the mobile market currently. That's a very different market. I think you have to really design your game almost specifically for that if you're going to do like a free-to-play release. It's not. We may look into that if the right game comes along, but right now that's not really one of the platforms we're looking at. We're looking at the consoles and the PC.
I mean, especially every time some publisher or company announce a successor of a game people know from consoles, and they say, as soon as they say it's on the mobile market, there is a big outcry. Recently happening with Wipeout. Everybody is like, oh no, why are you doing it mobile only?
Well, because you can't play them. It's not the same. The gameplay isn't the same. You don't have the, it's...
Yeah, and that usually means, it's going to be, a situation where you have to buy all kinds of things in the app to sort of like let properly and everything. So,
pay to win.
I mean, it's kind of what it is. Yeah. So it's not my thing, and it's not a road that Apogee wants to go down.
Wonderful. Yeah. Now, of course, most people will say, make a deal with Gearbox, get a new Duke Nukem. But no. I guess that's very unlikely to happen.
Well, now that Gearbox and Peter Realms are owned by the same umbrella company, who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I mean, I won't have any part of it, but Fred is still there, and I know he would love to do a Duke Nukem game. So it would not surprise me if that doesn't happen in the near future.
But if I'm not mistaken, you are still an advisor for 3D Realms, right?
That's still kind of like being sort of negotiated. So I'm not sure it's going to happen or not. I'm not even sure that I really want that to happen. I'm still, pretty darn busy with Apogee stuff. So maybe I just stay focused on that. So if there's an advisor role that doesn't take it more than a few hours a month, then I might consider it. But right now, I don't think it's going to happen.
Interesting. So you will focus on Apogee exclusively now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's where the fun's happening for me now.
Well, I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, as you said, 3D Realms is sold to a good place. You have Apogee back, and I don't know, is the Commander Keen thing? I think Commander Keen a few years back was actually released on a mobile platform on Android a few years back, a successor or something.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't follow that.
Yeah, it totally fell through the cracks, I think. Right, wonderful. So, is there? I wonder, is there any photo material you could send to us about the booth and the fair you went, PAX?
Oh yeah.
So perhaps you could put it in so people can actually see when you talk about how nice it was.
We'll overlay it over the video.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. I can definitely send you some stuff.
Awesome. So you mentioned Sir, I think his name was Sir Johnson Sir or something. I don't remember the voice actor of
John
St. John.
Yeah, John
exactly,
St. John.
Exactly. John St. John. Will he have a role in a game that you do?
We are definitely looking to put him in some of our future coming games for sure. Yeah, he's such a great guy. He does a whole range of voices. We helped get him into the industry in the '90s. I think his first game that he did was doing Duke 3D. So he started off with a bang. We love John. We're actually using him. He's helping us sort of be, in some ways, like a spokesman for us. We're releasing videos a couple of times a month where he kind of talks about upcoming projects and so on, and that's going to continue. If there's any opportunity to get John to do some sort of cameo work or whatever we can find in our games, he'll be in there.
I mean, when I saw the trailer, I was like, "Oh, I know this voice. This is awesome."
Yeah, no, John does great stuff. There's no doubt about it. So,
is there anything you are planning to do now that you wish you could have done back in the '90s when Apogee was first founded?
Haven't thought about that. Something.
I mean, we have better technology.
Yeah, I mean, some of the games that we're doing now, I think, are stuff that we would have liked to have done back in the '90s. I think that like a game like Elements, we would have never thought we would have ever could have possibly done a game like that. A big sweeping fantasy game that in some ways is reminiscent of like Breath of the Wild, and it's not going to be nearly that complicated or deep or anything, but it's going to have like an area that you can explore that's like at least 1/4 the size of Breath of the Wild. Tons of quests. It's going to have a lot of things that Breath of the Wild didn't have, like swimming and other things. So, a game like that would have just been completely a fantasy back in the '90s for us to even think about doing. And now we're doing one. So, and we're going to help the developer. We're bringing on more manpower to help them out. We're going to make sure it has certain multiplayer modes. So, it's a major project that just would have been unheard of for us to think about doing in the 90s. But here we are. We're involved with it, and it's coming along extremely well. And so, yeah, it's going to happen.
Awesome. I was supposed to ask something. Now I forgot what it was. Hey, Jay, can you jump in and?
I missed. There was 3 helicopters, the Coast Guard copters that just went over. I didn't get any of that. I muted my mic so that it wouldn't over. It wouldn't.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
miss any of it up.
Well, so I really forgot what I wanted to ask. Never mind. It will come to place.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, you mentioned multiplayer. So you know what would be good? Oh yes, now I remember. You know what would be good to bring perhaps back Bobby Prince. He is so much known for wonderful soundtracks in the old Apogee games.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've actually had a lot of contact with Bobby over the last couple of years, and I don't know if he's still really interested in doing music for games, like original music. He might have left that behind him, and we are actually working with numerous just amazing audio people and musicians right now. If you've like listened to any of our trailers, I think that you'll agree that the quality of the music that we're bringing to the party here is just really top notch. And I mean, we're using people that are not necessarily from the game industry, but people that do work like on symphonies and stuff, and actual film soundtracks and stuff. Just so we're trying to like think outside the box with the musicians we're bringing in, and not using sort of like the same musicians that a lot of companies are using, just to kind of like get a different sound, get a more orchestral type of sound, and so that's kind of the direction we're going now. We're working with I think 6, 7, or 8 different musicians currently that are really doing an amazing job. Like a game like Elements, just a sweeping fantasy game. We're going to have 3 or 4 musicians all kind of working on that game at the same time, because we need so much music in that game, and like different elements, different areas in the game, like scary areas might be better for one musician, more lighthearted areas might be better for another one. So we're trying to match musicians up with the theme of the game that you're in at the time. So that's an area that we're really trying to put a lot of emphasis on. I've always been a huge believer in the power of music, in film, TV shows, and games also. So it's a major area of focus for us.
Yeah, there's something to be said for bringing back. Hang on. There's something to be said for bringing back old talents, but then like you said, you're finding a lot of new people to come in, and for a while, if you made a game, it was 40 or 50 people at the very minimum making a game, and now with the indie scene, you're able to do it with just 1 or 2 or 3 people. So are there? So now you have the opportunity to find like new talented people that are really good at this. Have you you've mentioned that you've been signing some? Can you talk about any of them?
Well, the names. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to recognize them, and but I mean, one of the things that we're doing also is with these musicians is I mean, so many musicians nowadays use just amazing samples, orchestras and so on. But we're also like for important parts of songs, we're bringing in actual musicians to actually play the parts. Like in some of the music we've already released for our trailers, like the guitar part is actually being played by a guitarist. There's some windboard, sort of wind woodwork, I forget how you say it, but that's actually being done by a musician. So, we're trying to bring in real artists also to really make the music sort of pop, sound authentic, and so on, and not sound like it's just coming from a computer or that kind of thing. So that's definitely one of the areas that we're focusing on. But yeah, I actually don't work with the musicians myself. We have a person here, one of our lead producers, who has a Hollywood background, and he's able to reach out to a lot of his network and get these musicians on board. In lots of cases, these are musicians that never even thought they'd work in the game industry. But after they do a couple of songs for us, they're like super excited about it. And we're doing a lot of even sort of interactive music to where they have to think in terms of like they loop like a more subtle area, and then when you get to an area where the tension's ramping up, then it loops into a more tense version of their song. And so we're getting into thinking in ways that they've never thought about before, because their background is just strictly linear music that's written over a scene. And so yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Well, I mean, games are like movies, just more interactive in a way.
Essentially what they are, yeah.
Exactly. It's interesting that you emphasize on that, because 15 years ago there was a shift in the game industry where a lot of music composers actually lost their jobs, because 15 years ago many game creators started branching it out and buying music from other bands, not getting it specifically composed for the game. I mean, there are many examples, and I it's interesting that now it's kind of shifting back to hiring people to make the music, especially for the game again.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that we've been trying to do, but we've been totally unsuccessful at it, is, you've got movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and so many movies that actually have these soundtracks, from a certain era, actual music. We have actually been looking into doing this, and for some of our games. The problem is that while we actually did this back in our game Prey that came out in 2006, we actually had 5 or 6 licensed songs. Like I think there was a Heart song in there. There was Fear the Reaper, and several other songs that were like on a jukebox or would play at different parts of the game. And back then, the licensing fee for these songs was about $8,000 to $10,000. But nowadays, the price has gone way up. Like all the songs that we've looked into are around $80,000 to $100,000. Yeah, so it's just out of our price range at the indie level. I could, games like GTA can pull this off. But at the indie level, it's just too pricey. So it would be nice if we could do that. Maybe we can figure out how to make this work at some point down the road. But yeah, it's out of our ballpark now. But like I said, we would love to do that, because I love how a lot of these movies have pulled in songs that bring back a nostalgic feel and so on to the scene at hand. So anyway, that's another area that we've explored. Too pricey. We're going to keep exploring it though.
Interesting. Thanks for talking about that. That's even a topic back from the 80s. Just before the interview, I was playing a bit Renegade on the NES, and I figured out, oh, that's Johnny Be Good, from
right.
Chuck Berry playing in the first level. I was like, okay, changing a few notes here and there, so it doesn't sound exactly like that, but it's still very close to it. But of course, that's pretty shady to make something that brings back the nostalgic feeling, but doesn't cause a copyright issue.
I'll give you an example here. Like when we were doing the announcement trailer for Turbo Overkill, which was announced about a month ago, I think. The song that I wanted for that trailer is a song by Judas Priest called Turbo Lover. And
very good song.
And we felt like, yeah, this matches up great. It has the right energy. It'd just be like the perfect song. And but it was $100,000, so I couldn't use it. We did actually make a version of the trailer using a Turbo Lover, kind of cut up to match the trailer internally, just to see how it would work out. It worked out so great. I wish we could release it, but we can't. We just can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about, as I said, it's out of your ballpark, but doesn't a name like Scott Miller convince the the people throwing in the money?
You know, if they recognize my name, the price only goes higher.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem.
So that doesn't, you just can't just walk in and be like, "Yo, I'm Scott Miller, fool."
Yeah.
Give me a song.
You know, and I wish these companies would realize that, you know, if we released a trailer with their song, you know, it's a win-win. You know, it's not like, you know, it totally helps put their song back on the map too. And they would benefit from sales and song, but they don't see it that way. They just they see it solely one-sided. Hey, you're benefiting from our song. It doesn't matter if we're going to get a lot more sales out of it. So yeah.
I mean, that happened with Beyond Become Human, that Android game where they actually made the musician great and known because they they scanned the musician's face and just made him a street musician in the game, and people actually bought his music because of that. So you're right here. It actually can start a career for some people, you know, because they were part of a video game. in a
Well, I mean, if you look at like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm not trying to compare our game with anything that huge in the media, but you know that made all the songs that appeared in that movie sell. I mean, they all kind of went to the top of the chart there for a while.
Right.
So I just don't understand why these media executives don't work more fairly on deals. You know, and say, yeah, you're just an indie company. You know, we're not going to charge you the full 100K. You know, maybe 10K, 15K, something like that. You know, which we would have done a deal with, but yeah, I
looking at short-term gains only.
I think they're just a little too greedy.
Yeah.
And it
backfires.
backfires.
A lot in publishing. They're stuck kind of in the past. They don't really, you know, they don't get the way distribution and everything works now. It's like, you know, now this has to be like it was in 1964.
Right. Anyway, guys, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to cut out of here.
Yeah.
No problem. Absolutely. No problem.
Thank you for sitting with us.
Do you have a few seconds so you can record a little promo for us? Like,
sure.
Hello, I'm Scott Miller from Apogee Games. You are listening to the Scene World podcast?
Scene World podcast? Sure.
Scene World podcast, yeah.
Hi, guys. This is Scott Miller, and I'm here with Apogee. And we start over. That was bad. So what do you want me to say again?
Well, your name, Scott Miller. I'm from Apogee, and you are listening to the Scene World podcast. Scene World podcast.
Yeah, got it. Hi, this is Scott Miller, founder of Apogee Entertainment, and I'm here on the Scene World podcast, and I recommend everyone listen to it. It's pretty darn awesome.
Thank you. Thanks
awesome.
a lot.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for sitting with us. Where can people go to find out about what you're doing?
I would just say our website, which is Apogee ENT, so it's kind of weird. Apogee with 3 E's in the middle, NT, so it stands for ApogeeEntertainment.com.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. We'll put a link to that right in the podcast description below so everyone can go and check that out.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for saying with us.
Bye, guys.